So after I realized that Clo Bare could actually pay the bills, I decided to start working on some really important things. So let's get into the how I actually quit my job. The number one deal I made with myself was like, if I'm able to make $5,000 on average a month between March and September, I'm allowed to quit my job. That ended up happening for me, and so by October it was like, all right girl, it's now or never, let's do this. Now the other thing I really wanted to do in preparation for quitting my job is I wanted to make sure that I had a 1-year emergency fund, because I have read so many horror stories of entrepreneurs who get started, they barely have an emergency fund, and they're really just hoping that things are gonna work out and things are gonna explode. And even though I knew I had had the success for the last 6 months and knew I was able to bring in income, my fear was, well, what if something changes? What if it stops? What if this is just a fluke? Again, that imposter syndrome coming in. So I decided, you know what? The thing that would make me feel the most comfortable with quitting my job is having a year emergency fund. And the other thing is I really realized like there's never gonna be a better time for me to quit than right now. I am 30 years old and the only responsibility I have is this cute little dog over here, who is the most amazing thing in my life and my only responsibility. And believe it or not, this is still a video. She is just laying like that because she's got a, sunbathe. My only responsibility is my dog Logan, paying rent and paying off my student loans. And it's like, as long as I can cover those expenses and I still have enough money to eat every month and pay utilities and keep the lights on, why not do this? And $5,000 a month is enough for me to do all of those things and still save $500 a month in my IRA. So I said, you know what? With a year in emergency fund, I'm gonna feel pretty invincible. Now, another thing that I did is I wanted to make sure I knew exactly how much money I would lose in my 401k by leaving before I was fully vested. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, being fully vested in your 401k means that the employer match is yours. So for me, my employer had a laddered vesting period. So it was like, if you worked 1 year, you had 0% vested in the employer match. If you worked 2 years with the company, you had 20% vested in the employer match, and so on and so forth. I think at year 3, which I had only worked there for 3 years, I was vested about 40% in the employer match. So I looked and I checked it out and I was like, okay, if I leave my job, I'm going to lose 60% of the employer match portion of my 401k. Am I okay with that? And at the time, 60% was, I believe I was losing about $13,000. And I was like, would I pay $13,000 to leave my job? And the answer was yes, I would happily pay $13,000 to leave my job. So I knew I was very, very much committed to this process. If you are planning to leave your job, I definitely recommend that you check your 401k balance and check to see how much money you're actually going to lose in your employer match. I had my year emergency fund. I had my goal of making that $5,000 a month. I had already checked my 401k. Then the other thing I did, which I know prevents a lot of people from quitting their job, is I checked on insurance rates. So I decided to start calling people to see really what would I realistically be paying for insurance. And I was able to find insurance with United Healthcare that cost me about $300 a month. And it's got everything that I need. It's got a very high deductible. I believe my deductible for the year is about $5,000. It might be all the way up to $6,000, which really isn't all that different to what I was paying before. But it'll cover, my preventative care. It'll also cover my catastrophic care and things like that. So the nice thing is I'm totally covered and I've got my insurance going, but that was a really big thing for me. I think we all fear like, oh my gosh, what am I going to pay for insurance? But honestly, I was surprised at how low the costs were. I think that we all have this idea in our head that it's going to cost thousands of dollars. And for some of you, it may, if you've got a family, if you've got a bunch of kids, if you've got dependents and things like that. But for me, being a single woman who really doesn't have a lot of health issues, again, knock on wood, it wasn't that expensive for me to go ahead and switch into my own insurance. So I made sure that I knew what I was going to be paying beforehand. And the next thing that I did is I ran my numbers. I looked at my bare minimum expenses, that if I quit my job, what would I bare minimum need to make every month in order to do that? And again, that's what led me to that $5,000 a month number. So definitely, if you are thinking about quitting your job, run your numbers. Make sure you know what your ramen noodle number is. What is like the number that if you're not making anything a month, this is exactly how much you need to make in order to just survive, even if that surviving is just ramen noodles. Oh, this is Logan. She says, thank you for figuring out our ramen noodle number, and thank you for figuring out our year emergency fund. And she's like, I'm so glad you quit your job because now you never go into the office. You're always here. Logan, for those of you who don't know, is a pandemic baby dog. And I got her in March 2020, right into the pandemic. And it was also right when I had moved into this apartment. And she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. But she's a rescue and all that good stuff. So anyway, I really quit my job to spend more time with my dog, let's be honest. Now, the other thing that I did to make sure that I was pretty prepared for quitting my job is I decided, you know what, I really don't want to live in Chicago anymore. And it's cold, it's expensive, and where I live, it's not that easy to get around without a car, and I don't currently have a car. So I decided, you know what, I know I want to move. I just don't know where I want to move yet. So I decided for the next year, I am moving my stuff back into my parents' house. I'm taking Logan with me, and we're gonna go on a road trip through the US to kind of figure out where the heck I want to be. Now, really what I've done to kind of budget for that and plan for that is I'm just assuming that the cost of the Airbnbs that I'm going to be renting out are going to be about the cost of rent, and they're also going to, like, if I include the rent and the utilities, it's probably going to be approximately that. So I'm budgeting for that. But the nice thing is let's say I have a tight month, I can just stay with my parents. So I know I am blessed to have parents that I love and parents that I have a really good relationship with who allow me to live in their place. So it's really nice knowing that I have that backup plan. Like, even if worst case scenario happens and I don't make any money for a while, I can stay with my parents. I can stop my travel plans, go home, and just chill for a little bit. So that is another thing that was in the back of my mind, is like, okay, if I could just eliminate the cost of rent for a little while, that might make it a little bit easier to further commit to quitting my job. And luckily, it's been fine. So let's talk about how things have gone since I quit my job. So we are in January right now, and so I have been a full-time entrepreneur for 4 months. And let me tell you guys, it's been insane. Like, it's been really, really good. Now, like I said, the first month was really hard because I had overcommitted myself. I had scheduled 60 different clients in October alone, and that just kind of made me lose my mind. It was too much, and I lost my voice. I started feeling like very drained, because really what I do is very similar to therapy in a way, and like, I'm really getting to know somebody deeply. Most of my coaching sessions are 2 hours at minimum. Some of my coaching sessions are an hour. But like, we're really working through stuff. We're doing a lot of talking. We're really figuring out on how to problem solve and things like that. And while I absolutely love what I do, it can be really draining. So after the first month of entrepreneurship, I was like drained. I was so tired. And unfortunately, I had booked myself like that, where it was like an insane amount of clients from October all the way through November. So by December, I started really cutting back on how many clients I was taking, but I was really working hard on launching the Finance Creators Mastermind and on cranking out my course while still taking a client load. So it was kind of nuts. I remember talking to one of my friends, Deli-Ann, and telling her, I literally feel like I am hanging off of the edge, and I am just like holding on, hoping that once this course launches, I can like step back on solid ground. And luckily, it ended up being exactly that. So the wild thing that is, from October till now, in that time period, like I said, guys, I used to be making $5,000 a month with Clo Bare. From October till now, which is a 4-month time frame, really less than a 4-month time frame, I ended up making $60,000, which for those of you who are bad at math is a lot more than $5,000 a month. And I think that just really goes to show that this was the right decision for me. This allowed me to dive deeper into my business and really focus on what is the 80-20? What is the 20% of my efforts that's creating 80% of the income, 80% of the impact, and what can I do to really streamline this and make my life a little bit easier? And that has resulted in some crazy months of income. So I feel really blessed to know like this is going really well, but it's been a wild journey. Just in that time frame from that October till January, I was featured on CNBC, I was featured on Entrepreneur, I was featured on Bloomberg, but I was also able able to launch a new business with my friend Mark, and I launched a course, and I coached like over 100 people in that time. So it's been wild, but that's why I really had to stop doing YouTube and my blog for a bit, because I was gonna lose my mind. So now that we're in January, I'm feeling much more relaxed. I'm feeling like I have a little bit more of a grasp on this whole like balance thing. But you know, I'm excited to see what happens in the coming months. So that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. It has been a wild journey, but I am really excited to get back into creating content on YouTube to help you guys figure it out. But if you are planning on pursuing your own entrepreneur journey, these are the things that I do recommend. Give yourself an income goal and say, like, for this period of time, make it 6 months, at least 3 months. But I would say 6 months is a pretty good indicator that like this is not a fluke. This is something that you can probably continue to see. Make yourself an income goal for a monthly basis. Give yourself a time frame where you want to make that monthly income goal, and then decide how much of an emergency fund you need. So that's the first step, income goal. Second step, emergency fund. Now, for entrepreneurs, personally, with my own risk preference, I think most entrepreneurs would benefit from having a 6 month to 1 year emergency fund. My risk preference, I'm like, I want to have a year emergency fund just in case stuff happens, but I'm an anxious person, so that's why I want to have that year emergency fund. The third thing is prepare for your health insurance, make sure you know. And then the fourth thing is run your numbers. Know what you need to make on bare minimum basis in order to survive. So I definitely recommend going through those 4 things at the very least to prepare for moving into your entrepreneurship journey. That's really what I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to get back to this, but if you've made it this far and you haven't hit likes and you haven't hit subscribe, please consider doing that. It really does help me out a lot, and it'll encourage me to keep creating this content. So I appreciate you all. Let me know what you're doing in 2022. What are your 2022 money goals? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys next time.